The Mac Hike Auto Group text line is 601-885-3776. I just tweeted out a picture of Jackson Meadows and his jacket. So I think you'll love it. Yeah, it looks like he could also be, I was thinking about this, he could be a groupie for Elton John. Somebody that just travels with him, gets all the perks of the restaurants and the private plane.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't really do a whole lot, but make sure that, the vehicle's at the airport.
Yeah.
And that Elton John's luggage gets to the Ritz. I'm just thinking out loud.
Ensure that the vibes are right.
But, there are people that do that in the world that make six figures and really don't have any expenses. Now you got to be with the rock star. You got to be with somebody who makes an insane amount of money, like Taylor Swift, U2,
right,
Elton John, Mick Jagger. But, if you can be kind of their executive assistant, there's a guy, a manager, executive assistant. There's a guy from Mississippi and Ole Miss that, tied into Katy Perry. He's made a fortune. Super guy, too. But yeah, that jacket reminds me of you just kind of rolling through a private airport in Vegas.
Yeah.
With Elton John. Or
I've worn this.
Who else am I thinking about? What would be another
little flash,
flamboyancy entertainer?
Ooh. Elvis.
Yeah, but I need somebody alive.
That's a good point.
Although Elvis may be living in Dan Mullen's neighborhood. Who knows?
Let's see. The majority of them are women, right? Flamboyant people.
No, there's, Mick Jagger's flamboyant, Elton John, David Bowie, Madonna. You would have to give me some new, but they got to be mega stars.
Yeah, a bunch of them, they're just really sassy.
But if you are Taylor Swift's executive assistant, now I can't imagine how high maintenance she is.
Woo. But
if you are kind of what I'm describing and you're with her all the time, making sure that everything's good, she's jet set. She never goes to a regular airport. So it's always the side airports that's private. That's a good thing.
Oh,
you could make money, and you just got to make sure, these people are all about drama, and you just got to kind of keep it contained to a certain extent, but also kind of stoke it. It's that kind of happy balance of, I would have to believe.
That's easy. We can manage that.
Yeah.
I manage that real quick.
Yeah. I think, and you grew up around sisters, so you could kind of flame the drama, but also keep it at, how when you get the fire, you got a real low keep. You want to keep it, there's got to be some there just because they're stars and they're high maintenance, but you don't want it to be like a forest fire.
Oh, right. You just got to poke it and get out. Be smart with it.
Okay.
Fan the flame when you need to, and, skedaddle.
Yeah. Okay. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Res Dogs on the Mac Hike Auto Group text line says, MSU is done for my lifetime. Well, he's pretty optimistic.
Yeah. Bah humbug guy.
Let me ask him if he's still giving $5 a month to NIL. Hold on. And we'll see what he says.
Bro, that's $60 a year. Come on now.
I know. Come on.
That's a healthy chunk.
I'm going to see what he says on that. Are you still giving $5 a month to NIL? Brad says James Brown back in the day. James Brown was very, very talented, very flamboyant, but you need someone that's making mega money if you're going to look. You don't want to be an executive assistant for someone who's not jet setting.
Right. No, because then you got to do too much work.
You want someone that's going on that books out the Sphere in Vegas or does world tours like Justin Timberlake.
JT.
Right?
That'd be tight.
I mean, he's got a right hand, man or woman, who kind of shadows him, almost like a chief of staff for a politician. But in this case, you're bouncing around airports doing shows all around. That's what your jacket reminds me of.
I could bounce around airports doing shows so easily.
Yeah.
So easily.
Cher. If Cher would have been popular 30 to 40 years later when it was all this new money,
woo.
Now I will say this, back when albums sold, Bruce Springsteen talked about this on an interview. I don't know, what was it, a year ago? He said, look, I called it at the right time because when I became a star in the 70s, people were buying records.
Right.
And then I was a star, in 8-tracks and records. And then he got the whole CD run. Right. And he said, now it's just a different deal. Now, can you make a lot of dough? Sure. In new media. But back then you were selling gazillion millions of albums. If you were
right.
If you were like Bruce or Garth or
ain't that many of them,
Fleetwood Mac or any, there's others. So, but I thought he made a great point, about the timing of him becoming a star in the 70s when people were going to buy. Now we just pick individual songs on Spotify, right? And that's never going away.
No.
So now everybody tours and makes money on touring and merch. And he did a lot of that too, but he was making millions on 8-tracks, records, tapes, and then CDs. I mean, he and Madonna and all them were big on all those.
That's right.
And so were the Stones and so on. You too. Right?
Timing.
For sure.
Everything.
Zach Arnett's timing. Dan Mullen.
Dan
Mullen did Dan Mullen win the offseason?
I'd say so, right?
Great. The UNLV job, no pressure. You're not going to go 10-2. The only thing going against it, like everything's great about this, right? The taxes, the weather, an unbelievable city that's booming and popular, has everything that you need to sell a recruit. You've got a billionaire that's now backing your program. You've got a new $35+ million facility. You're an hour from LA. Fastest growing city in the country, I guess. Vegas and Nashville. There may be another one. And so you've got growth, you've got wealth, you've got money, you've got this billionaire who wants to be good. He's probably got some other buddies that want to be good. The only downside is he is walking in and they just won 10 games.
Right.
That's the only, and it's not something that Dan can't handle, because he won 10 games at Mississippi State and he won 10 games at Florida in the toughest, most brutal league in the land. But that's the only thing. What I can't wait to see with Mullen is, and look, you look at what Lane has done you look at what Dan and Hugh did with quarterbacks. It was unreal. You look at what Lane's done with quarterbacks with Matt Corral and Jackson Dart, and it's unbelievable. And even Levy's crushing it. I mean, the fact that he's got Blake Shapen and Luke Cromenhawk and Kamario Taylor is unreal. I think Kamario is the most talented, physically, athleticism-wise, guy that they've ever signed. But Tom Luganville, I continued to trade text messages with him yesterday on Luke Cromenhawk, and he doesn't have a dog in the hunt, so he's not a Hail State homer. And he was like, the dude is very, very talented. He's big. He's only going to gain weight and can be a really good player. We'll see who wins that battle between Blake Shapen and Luke Cromenhawk. But I'll say, you got to win. You got to get line of scrimmage guys, or you got to get some just semi-talented guys that can be coached up.
Right.
And I don't know how much talent you have on your coaching staff to be able to coach guys up on the offensive and defensive line. So we'll see. Somebody asked, Bo, do you You had made the call that you believe there will be changes. I still believe that there could be changes in Starkville.
At the DC position?
Yes.
Wow.
That doesn't mean that I'm not going to be. And if I'm wrong, I'm still taking Steve
boy.
Robertson to dinner at Commodore Bob's or Big E's or wherever we end up. Or
there's hope.
Restaurant Tyler. But I still believe that there could be changes in Starkville. So we are the Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 1059 The Zone. Chief Shooting Bull says, what about legends like Widespread Panic? Look, I like Widespread, but I'm talking about people on a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's not the same deal.
Like Elton John, U2, Madonna, when they're touring, they're on jets that you can sleep in and shower in.
Yeah, no buses, baby. And
they are doing world tours and packing out places in Singapore, Las Vegas, Beijing, and whatever. Right. And while Widespread is an unbelievable touring band, it's just different.
Completely.
Now, I do think, Widespread in its heyday, I would like to look at those revenue numbers. They got after it.
Yeah, but you're only traveling in the Southeast, really.
No, they went all over the country.
They did.
Yeah, I mean, they went all over the country. So, yeah, they made it here. Yeah. But
just want to let you know real quick on those UNLV running Rebels back to their Dan coming into a 10-win year. This is the only time they've won double-digit games since 1972.
You think Barry Odom can coach?
Oh, right.
I actually had people last year who could not believe that I thought Barry Odom would be a good pick for Mississippi State's head coach. Like, I can't do anything with that person. If that person doesn't get that, I can't do anything.
Golly.
I can't. Barry Odom would have been an unbelievable. Look, Lebby at quarterback is doing things that, you should be excited.
Yeah.
Yes, that is an unbelievable quarterback room. Blake Shapen, Luke Cromenhawk, who Lugan Bill has now sent me 5 or 6 text messages on and really, really likes the young man and his talent, and he thinks he's got insane upside. He's still young. He's a baby. And then Kamario Taylor, who I don't think you've ever signed anybody as talented as him. Now, something's going to shake. Not everybody can stay and blah, 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 but at least you got a room of talent, but you got to have line of scrimmage guys. And you need good coaching. Yes, Lebby can coach quarterback. Yes, he's a good play caller. Yes, adjusted to talent. He finished 37th in the country in offensive scoring efficiency against a brutal schedule with basically a freshman QB. Those are all good things. But your defense finished 107th or 108th in defensive scoring efficiency, and you don't have any war daddies on your staff as far as recruiters. You need to your hair needs to be on fire I don't understand this fan base. You need to demand excellence. Mullen set the standard at a high level and sent a bunch of people to the NFL. 2 or 3 of them may end up in the Hall of Fame. Right. And what I don't understand is you've got to decide if you want to win. You like the idea of winning. You've got to decide if you want to win, or you can continue to sit on your hands. You've got to demand that the leadership on campus understands. And you've got to put an enormous amount of pressure on that, because pressure is good on entities, on government, on you. We teach kids that pressure is not good that's not accurate. Pressure is good. Daily, your life, business, your team, whatever. You've got to decide if you want to sit on the sidelines and watch everybody pass you by that's part of the parade and having fun. Your passive approach doesn't work. It doesn't. And I don't know how many times I've had to say it over the years. You've got to be relentless, aggressive, and ruthless in your pursuit of what you want.
Where do you start? Where would Bo Bounds start?
I'd start by telling Jeff Lebby that I wouldn't be asking him if he's going to make changes. I would be telling him that he would be making changes. If he didn't like it, that's okay. We all get told stuff that we don't like.
Absolutely.
It's part of it.
Yep.
And then we would formulate a plan to go get the absolute best coaches that we could.
Right. Would you go? I mean,
both a combination of on the field and recruiting.
Okay. That's where I was going. Yeah.
And I don't understand why there's not senior analysts on the staff that are veterans that you should pay to put around Jeff as he's developing into a head coach.
Can't you have as many of those as you want?
Yes.
And that been the Saban? Wasn't that the Saban thing? Just get a bunch of analysts?
And Smart does it, and Lane does it, and Sark, and you know, the one thing about Shane Beamer, you know, I did not think it was going to work, but they put good people around. He needed a lot of marinade, and he needed to grow, and they put a lot of veterans around him. And this is not a shot. Everybody needs this to make it work. And I think there's something to that. I don't think there is. And I give Shane Beamer credit. They're really hot right now.
Hot.
And their people supported the NIL, which in turn gives you assets, which are players, and which in turn gives you wins.
It's going to be,
and I've told you, I think SEC wins are $10 to $15 million a pop.
Crazy.
So Ole Miss had five SEC wins this year, and South Carolina had five SEC wins. So I think I can put easily 50 to 75 million, but I think I'm low on what that's worth. And then not counting real estate. I think Lane's impact on Oxford real estate's 300 to 400 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Beamer?
I mean, Joe Max Higgins is the rock star right now. I mean, he's driving your economy in the Golden Triangle in Starkville. Now, if you get to winning again in football, then it'll be something different. I was actually impressed with I could not believe the attendance at two of the SEC games this year, considering what you've been through. And so the people still want, I mean, but you got to really, really decide if you want it. And you know, it's like when Mississippi State fans go, well, maybe Dak or Jeffrey Simmons will give us money, always wanting somebody else to take care of it. Why don't you go online and give $25, $50, $100, $300 a month? Stop asking guys in their 30s. That's not how it works. They don't give at that age at any school, LSU, Florida, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama. It's not how it works. Stop posting. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Stop doing it. And I can profile that person in a heartbeat. Okay? I'm eating taters.
Yeah, buddy.
Stop doing it. Stop saying, I hope Dak or Jeffrey give us money. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
You had 30 months. You had the last 30 months to go to give money. And yes, Dak's going to make a gift. And he'll make multiple gifts. Right. But he's going to make a gift sooner than later. And as he gets in his 40s and 50s, he'll make multiple gifts because he loves the university. But that's not his. He's doing other things right now. And so is Jeffrey Simmons and others. So, you know, it's ridiculous.
I don't know why people think that happens everywhere. There are limited number of cases where that's a thing, right? Where you have a current NFL stud at least come back and give you X amount of dollars.
It's rare until they get on up into, like Peyton Manning was not giving Tennessee money.
No.
When he was 29 years old.
I'd like to know when he started.
Now, do I think he's given gifts the last few years?
Yeah.
Yes. Do I think he's a boost? I think he's got a suite now. I mean, Dak wants a condo in left field. There's just not one open. Now, I'd find a way to get one open. I mean,
there's what?
He wants a loft. And now they put him in a loft when he gets there.
Right.
But he wants one. I would find a way to get. It's not hard to do.
No.
You know, it's not hard to do. You go to someone who's got one and say, "Hey,
here's the deal.
Would you mind if Dak halves this with you, and then you also get tickets to the Dallas Cowboys in the suite whenever you want it. And he'll also drop off a bunch of memorabilia for you.
Yeah.
But he was going to want to use it like twice a year. And that person would go, yes.
How is this not a highest bidder thing?
Oh, it is going forward.
Okay, yeah.
It'll cost way more than the $70,000 they cost a year.
Well, I'm talking about one of those guys in there. They got to be bidding to have the one that splits with Dak. How are you not? I'd want to split it with him.
Yeah, I would too. Because then you would get access to other things.
You parlay that into, God only knows.
You love parlay.
I love it.
You love somebody parlaying something into parlaying something.
Just round it over and keep it going and keep it moving. You got to compile the wins.
Yeah. You got to.
I'm good, Bo Bow.
You got to compile the wins. I think that's what you need to do the football program.
Life.
What, don't you think? I'm trying to think of something. You've already burned it down, so now you got to build it back up. What would that be on here? What about this? What do you think that is?
Elephant.
Nope, dinosaur. It did kind of sound like an elephant.
It was a little elephant.
This is what happened to the Mississippi State football program. That's an explosion. Or according to this thing, it is. So, anyway.
Was it self-inflicted?
Some of it was.
Yeah, I know the leech deal. But yeah.
No, I mean, you've got to, it's not Mississippi State's fault on the leech thing.
Sure.
But there's a lot of other things that, were a swing and miss.
30 months. Is that when the NIL started around about?
Yeah, I wanted to round it up, make it
cool.
a nice, tidy, even number. So it's basically been 30 months.
Right. So the NIL
of letting the world you got to win in football. Basketball's fun and baseball's fun. They don't move the needle. Football moves the needle. You got to win SEC games. When you win SEC games, everything else is taken care of. So, what is this? Three Hump Camel says Syracuse won 9 games with the stud QB and a new staff. State can figure it out. I absolutely believe MSU can figure it out. The question is, when? And do they want to put an enormous amount of pressure on the school and the program? And do their part, too. We're live in the Bank Plus studio.
Say, kids, what time is it?
It's 9 a.m., and this ain't no K show. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds.
On aboard!
As Mississippi's #1 morning show rolls on the Zone 105.9 and online at thezone1059.com.
Hey, the Keg House in Ridgeland is a super place to enjoy the games. 41 beers on tap, and amazing food. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're brought to you by the Keg House in Ridgeland on Highway 51 right by Fleet Feet. The Keg House, muffalettas, gumbo, all kinds of amazing appetizers, 41 beers on tap, including Key City and several key cities out of Vicksburg, Mississippi. Drink local, try it. They've got delicious beer and many more wonderful craft beers. And they got all the domestics and imports. But Greg and the team there, they've got trivia night, all kinds of themed nights. And the Keg House in Ridgeland on Highway 51. And then Barley's Beer Barn up the road in Gluckstadt has an amazing selection of beer. Barley's Beer Barn and the Keg House in Ridgeland on 51 by Fleet Feet. Ole Miss just landed a running back, and he's now their highest rated player. Kawan Lacey. So there you go. He was at Missouri. Yeah. And now he's at Ole Miss, or he will be shortly. He's 5'10", 196, and he's an 88 rating. No, he's not their highest rated. This Dazon Stribling is the highest rated. He's a wide receiver that Ole Miss just landed too. So back to back, they're now #1 in the portal again. They just leapfrogged LSU. They're a half a point ahead of LSU in the transfer portal. Ole Miss 1, LSU 2. We mentioned Texas Tech last year. They had those guys that had made a ton of money. Two of the players are young, former players under Leach. They're either billionaires or both of them have made hundreds of millions of dollars. But they've got this group that's very committed. They're third in the portal. Auburn's fourth. A&M's fifth. Mississippi State's sixth with the Luke Cromenhawk pickup. So Mississippi State is sixth in the transfer portal. And is Luke the highest rated guy? Yeah. He's a 94 ranked guy, 94 rating. Luke Cromenhawk from Florida State. And Brennan Thompson is up there, the speedster from Oklahoma, wide receiver. Actually, the safety's even higher than Brennan. Jerron Manning. So there you go. That's an update. Lane's trying to be the portal king. He doesn't want Brian Kelly to become the portal king. And so Ole Miss is up by a half a point. The Blue Bloods really aren't playing yet. Now, some of them are in the college football playoff, like Georgia and Texas. Obviously, they finished 1, 2, and 3 there in high school recruiting. But, and let me give you that as far as the high school recruiting from last week or the week before. Texas finished first, Bama finished second, Oregon third, Georgia fourth, Ohio State fifth, and Auburn sixth. God, Auburn sixth, A&M seventh, LSU eighth. SEC. Unreal. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 8 finished. 6 of the top 8, Jackson, finished or from the SEC in high school recruiting. 6 of the top 8.
Shocker.
I
mean, is that a telltale sign for the future?
Well, it's been happening, but yeah, even more so now that Freeze is recruiting the way he is. Yeah. And, I mean, that's his second class, second top 10, I think second top 7, actually.
6 of the top 8 in high school recruiting.
Yeah.
And portal-wise.
Portal is SEC. I'll go over it real quick. Yeah, portal is Ole Miss at 1, LSU at 2, Auburn at 4, A&M at 5, Mississippi State at 6. So
5 of the top 6.
5 of the top 6 in the portal are from the SEC.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that doesn't show you a few things.
Unbelievable, huh?
I mean, I don't think there's going to be many years where we have this many teams in the playoff, this small amount. Surely we'll have more, especially when it gets extended.
Yeah, now, look, Greg Sankey is mad.
Oh,
he has no one to be mad at but himself and the teams that didn't win. Look, I was on Tuscaloosa Sports Talk Radio yesterday with Ryan Fowler, Roll Tide Ryan Fowler, 109 The Game. And, he was complaining about Sankey, and I was like, dude, just win.
Yeah.
You lost at Vandy and at Oklahoma. Ole Miss lost at home to Kentucky. And South Carolina did kind of get hosed in their game against LSU. But the bottom line is, if any of those teams go 10-2, they're in. You got to win. And Ole Miss had they had a Colin schedule. I mean, it was a Mississippi junior college schedule. Kentucky, awful. Arkansas, not any good. Mississippi State, awful. Oklahoma finished outside the top 100 in scoring efficiency. I mean, it was there. It was low-hanging fruit. Your non-conference schedule was East Mississippi. I mean, it was junior college-esque.
Yeah, give me
Division 4.
That's crazy.
It was roast beef tech schedule. Yep. And, I don't even remember who all you played. Wake wasn't any good. And then you played a bunch of teams that I can't. Wofford State, and Elon Tech, and something else. I can't remember what it was. It was a beautiful schedule.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, kudos to y'all, landing that schedule. Again, the 4 big boy, the 4 schools, 2 of the 4 took advantage. Ole Miss, Texas, Tennessee, and Missouri all had, blend. They're just terrible on offense. Look where they finished in offensive scoring efficiency. They didn't score over 20 points in an SEC game, and they scored 20 points against Ole Miss. Now, it wasn't Pete Golding. Pete Golding wasn't the reason they lost that game. That's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to set you up on the offense that they were. They didn't score over 20 points in an SEC game this year. Mississippi State did that against Georgia. I mean, Jeff Levy can coach offense. We are the Out of Bounds Show, the Mac Hike Auto Group. Text line is 601-885-3776. I'd say that loss to Kentucky cost Ole Miss $30 million.
At minimum.
Maybe more. Back in a second. All right, we got breaking news. Jim Ellis retiring after 46 years behind the mic. Jim Ellis will be retiring as the play-by-play voice for Mississippi State baseball. He had already stepped away. Y'all know this. Neil Price was doing football and basketball, and Jim did everything, but then he just went to baseball, right? And then, yeah. So there you go. Obviously, you had Jack Crystal as the play-by-play voice for ever, the legend. And then Jim did a good job.
Who'd he follow in hoops?
Well, he used to do it with Jack,
Right.
which was weird because you would think you'd have a color analyst, former player. Anyway, and then so Jim and Jack were together, and then Jim did basketball and baseball, and then he just went to baseball. And then they kind of filled in with baseball. You know, they'd rotate people through. Well, he did it by himself, and then I guess over the years they finally figured out you need another voice, and you know Jay Powell would go through. Jay did a really good job.
Yeah.
Cohen, when he was AD, was fantastic at bouncing in the booth for an inning or two. Ron Polk, once he got over getting mad that they didn't hire Tommy Raffo and hired John. John, did everything he could to mend that fence, and once Ron got done with, I guess, volunteer coaching at UAB, Polk's been coming in the booth with Jim Ellis for a few years now. I don't know how many years, but several, right? And actually, Ron's good when he's not hocking up a loogie, and he doesn't care about any kind of broadcasting, Kuth. I mean, he's just whatever. I mean, nobody's ever told him no in his life, which was a problem, but also funny. And he's never had to answer. He's never had a wife or kids. You just look at life through a different lens when you do, because you have people that depend on you so much. But Ron's good at, analyzing and evaluating and so on the game. And so, yeah, Jim Ellis, 46 years behind the mic. He'll
46.
That's a long time,
That's
my
a
man.
long time.
He got, I don't know how many College World Series he went to. I guess I could do the math real quick. 79. They may have gone before then, but 79, 81, 85, 90, 97, 98, 07, 13, 18, 19, and 21. I don't know how many of those were, but that sounded like a lot. So, but Jim Ellis will be retiring. So there you go. That's, he did a good job. And everybody remembers Jim. There we
I mean, right. I mean, he's iconic.
And I mean,
now,
he
right?
did it, man. I mean, he did it. He did the road trips, man. I mean, now State and Ole Miss have money. So you fly everywhere, and you've got great accommodations, and there's a big budget. They both have $120 million budgets. Well, when Jim Ellis was doing Mississippi State baseball, and let's just pick a year, 1979, first year they go to Omaha. I mean, I probably went out there to beat up Plymouth.
Yeah.
To call Ron Polk's first or second College World, I can't remember, at with Bruce Castoria and whoever it was. Buck Showalter was there, 77. John Grisham became a huge Mississippi State fan, baseball fan, as an undergrad, right in that 77, 78 range, 79. Showalter was there, Gillespie, Castoria, and many more. And then, of course, Brantley, Palmer, and Clark really made it, the whole thing pop and sizzle. We'll have to get Jeff on. I'll text him right now, see if he'll do a phone interview on
Cowboy.
that Reds Cowboy. Isn't that great?
I love that.
That's
Perfect.
yeah. Brantley doing Cincinnati Reds TV and radio. He likes doing radio better, but he likes TV. He loves radio. I get it. It's amazing that the Cincinnati Reds have over 100 affiliates. I mean, because of the Big Red Machine and all that generation getting so into the Big Red Machine, the fact that they do a tour around the state of Ohio because of their 100 and plus affiliates for Cincinnati Reds baseball is unbelievable to me. You know, because of Bench and Rose and the whole crew. And then they'd win it again in 90. But it's crazy. I tell you what, you've had some good baseball announcers come out of Mississippi State. You know, we talked about Jim. Jack did it even prior to that, because I remember Jack Crystal, when I interviewed him, he told me about going to the CWS in 72, I think, or 71. I don't know. It was before Jim. And then Jack eventually, you know, let Jim handle baseball. But you've had Jack Crystal, and then you had Jim Ellis, but you had Jeff Brantley did ESPN for years. He's been with the Reds forever. You got Buck Showalter, who did ESPN. If Jake Mangum ever decides to get on the mic, he'll be fantastic. The SEC network would trip over themselves for Mangum to do baseball. He's doing podcasts in the offseason, which is smart to kind of build his media chops. And I'm missing, I think am I missing anybody? Will Clark would be great, but he's still working in MLB. So, of course, I don't know if Will could stop from saying F-bombs on the air while, like, if he's calling Giants games, if he ever, decided to do that. But he's been in scouting and doing all that. Am I missing someone? Jay Powell's good.
Yeah.
Jay's fantastic at breaking down the game. But he's also still at prep as the pitching coach. So he's got not a huge schedule, but still during the late winter and spring, they're ripping and running, right? But he does pick, he does get to do some games. Jack Crystal, Jim Ellis, Buck Showalter, Jeff Brantley, Jay Powell. I think I'm missing somebody that's really obvious, and I hate that I'm doing that. I'm trying to think. They should have had even more get into it.
Right.
Raffy doesn't have the personality. He's real shy. Will is very vocal and brash, no filter. I think if he could handle the profanity, he could be good.
Great,
I mean, listening to him break down baseball is amazing.
Right.
I'm trying to think as of late who, like a character. Cohen had some characters go through the program that may obviously, Mangum's not a character, but he's got a good personality and could be great calling games. Sure. Trying to think of a lot of times a pitcher who's kind of a character and flamboyant, maybe. Let me think that through. But kudos to Jim Ellis. I hope he enjoys retirement.
Yeah, what a career.
Jacob says the Cowboy is my favorite Reds radio announcer. Well, Jeff is insane. I'll say this about Jeff Brantley. On the mic, he is a natural. He is really, really good. He was great on ESPN, and he's good with the Cincinnati Reds. And when we have him on, he's awesome. There's just it was one of those things that was just an easy transition for Brantley. I've interviewed a lot of people, as y'all know, and when he walks in here, he just right at home. He owns the mic. He knows what he wants to say. He understands how to do it. And now that he's called, how many baseball games has he called now over his career?
Ow.
Right. He got a good gig with the Cincinnati Reds, and that is a market that is committed to baseball. Good morning. Welcome in. Lunch today is brought to you by Burgers Blues Barbecue, Dogwood, Flowwood, Blue Plates, and burgers and sandwiches. Look at the people who are retweeting this, because I just retweeted it, and Kyle Peterson, who, arguably the biggest name in college baseball, and a friend of the show, and been able to hang out with him. He's a good dude on ESPN and the SEC network. Loves Mississippi State and Ole Miss baseball and recognizes the commitment and that of the SEC. Kyle Peterson immediately reposted it. Everybody knows Jim Ellis. When you've been to Omaha, when you've been to the big stage that many times, let's see, 7, 13, 18, 19, 21. I think I'm missing one, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 College World Series. I may have missed one under Ron. But that's Ron, Cohen, and Lamonis. And then he called 2 national championship series and the winner of one. He called people, he called games for Will Clark. These are all-stars, multi-time all-stars. Jeff Brantley was an all-star. Will Clark was an all-star. Bobby Thigpen was an all-star. Rafael Palmeiro was an all-star. Brent Rooker's been an all-star. There's more. What?
Oh, there's a plethora of all-star appearances.
Yeah. So he's called games for Mississippi State, but a bunch of players who didn't just go to Major League Baseball, they were really good players. Raffy and Will should be in the Hall of Fame. I think Will's going to come up a little short for whatever reason, and maybe because of his bite with reporters. And they didn't win it. If they win it in 89 during the Earthquake series against the A's, I think, and that's not the way it's supposed to be, but I think if Will wins it in 89 against Canseco and McGuire and Ricky Henderson and that group, maybe Dave Stewart, I can't remember, Eckersley, God, one of the best closer of of all time. Talking about not an awesome personality, but a great player. But if Will wins it in 89, I think he's in. They made a run when he was at St. Louis, but didn't quite get there. I can still remember Will with a beer in his hand after the Cardinals won the first series in the playoffs, but they didn't win the second to get to the World Series. Raffy's got the PED thing. Yeah. So, I think Raffy, and then Raffy's numbers are insane.
Right.
But I think that Bonds and Clemens and Raffy and all these guys should be in. So should Del Murphy. But Jim Ellis stepping down, 46 years behind the mic. He called Buck Showalter games, Raffy, Will, Brantley, Thigpen, and just great, great players. Jay Powell won a World Series, and he was a hell of a pitcher at Mississippi State. He was on the mound when the Marlins won their first World Series. Jonathan Papelbon was on the mound when the Boston Red Sox, won their World Series. So Jim's called a lot of. I can't believe I forgot about Papelbon. Papelbon was one of the best
highly decorated
relief pitchers in the last 20 years in Major League Baseball. And had some stud years, and he's a World Series champion. Jay Powell's a World Series champ, and trying to think. Brantley and Clark were on that 89 Giants team that lost to the A's in the Earthquake series. I'm sure I'm missing some others, but and Showalter was a manager for both the Yankees and D-backs, but he didn't win it. Came close, but didn't quite get there. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're brought to you by Older Brother Bistro. It's two brothers in Starkville. It's their new sister restaurant, Older Brother Bistro. If you want the best Reuben I've ever had, Barton Dinkins mic dropped everybody in the SEC with the best culinaried up Reuben. I'm not even a Reuben. It's not something that I want a Reuben. This Reuben is the best I've ever had. And their deviled eggs with just a little bit of honey and bacon on top as an appetizer. who had deviled eggs? Was it Koshan or Merrill? Either way, Barton's deviled eggs at older brother is great. If you go up to watch Josh Hubbard or Cam Matthews, among others, this winter, spring, and then baseball will be here before you know it. You want to try older brother. It's about 10 yards from two brothers. It's like going and getting a first down. Yeah. Or running to first base. It's just not far. But it's super cool. And older brother bistro, I highly recommend. Get you a Tito's martini or espresso martini and a Reuben at older brother bistro. And raise a toast to Jim Ellis in his 46 years as a broadcaster with, I think, 9 to 10 College World Series appearances. He called the Final Four with Jack in 96, right? He called the Sweet 16 in 95. He called the 1998 SEC championship game. And so in a span of 95, Sweet 16, never been done in the state of Mississippi, Jack and Jim. In 96, they go to the Final Four. He calls that. In 97, they go to the College World Series. In 98, they go to the College World Series and the SEC championship game. And after, I don't know how many years. So this was just 3 years ago. They won take off 43 years in. He called a national champion. He had already called a national championship series, but called a national championship win. For MSU over Vanderbilt.
Right.
And Rocker. Kumar. That's right. So he's been everywhere. Yeah. I mean, he's been all over the country for football and basketball and baseball games. But those were, he would have to tell you I would think the national championship series against Vanderbilt. I would think the Final Four, the 2013 national championship series against UCLA, the 1998 SEC championship game, and I would have to believe the 95 Sweet 16 too, but there's many more. I mean, he's got the Burke Masters call. When Burke hit the grand slam against Florida State in the 90 regional. Now, they had to come back and win another game, but they went to the CWS. Cohen was a starter on that team that year. And let me see if I got something here. Let's see. Speaking of. All right. We're texting people left and right on the air. It's great radio. We are the Out of Bounds Show. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app and the zone1059.com. And the show is brought to you by Burgers Blues Barbecue and that Dirty Bird wrap. Get the fried chicken Dirty Bird wrap and get sweet potato fries or onion rings with it at Burgers Blues Barbecue in Dogwood, Flowwood. Or just order it for the office today or tomorrow. That sounds awesome. Will you call Cohen? Mm-hmm. Let me give you that number. I can give it to you because I can mute this thing real quick. Just get ready for it, and I'll mute my mic. It's 662 418. All right, we're going to have John Cohen on the show. And I think that'll be good. And we'll get Brantley at some point, and we just text Will Clark too. So we'll just line it up this week, and we'll pay homage to Jim Ellis, 46 years as the broadcaster, many hats for Mississippi State. And he did it at a time, a big chunk of that time when they didn't have a budget, So when you think about that, that's pretty damn cool. But 46 years, wore so many hats, and so impressed with, and he went Ron Polk used to have the baseball team play out in Hawaii. I had to ask John if he made one of those trips. But Ron was the first one to do that. And think about all the great players that he's got to watch play and called games for. It's unbelievable. 46 years. Final Four. National championship in baseball. 2 of them. 2 national championship series. It's crazy. We're going to welcome in John Cohen, Auburn athletic director. was Hail State AD, was the baseball coach, started for several years in baseball when Jim was calling the games, and was on the 1990 College World Series team. And John Cohen joins us on the Out of Bounds show in the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. John Cohen, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. How you doing, Bo?
Well, thank you for doing this on such short notice, but I know I know he's your friend, Jim Ellis. I know how much respect you have for him, and just kind of your reaction and your thoughts to Jim hanging it up after 46 years.
Yeah, Bo, I'm old enough to remember when transistor radios were everywhere, and
I love it.
And listening to the Jack Bucks and the Jack Brickhouses of the world.
Yeah.
And, I just thought Jim Ellis was in that category, and we're just so fortunate that we had him at Mississippi State for all these years, because his ability to paint the picture, the ability to keep you informed, to entertain you, all of those things were at the highest level. And it's just one of those things that made Mississippi State baseball a national brand. I think Jim was a big part of that.
John Cohen talking about Jim Ellis, 46-year broadcasting career for Hail State. John was an all-SEC baseball player, comes back, takes the baseball job, rebuilds the program, takes him to the National Championship Series, hires Lamonas, who eventually wins the National Championship, talking about his friend Jim Ellis. Do you remember the first time he interviewed you, John?
I do, and I was so incredibly nervous because, in some respects, like, you're more nervous about being around Jim Ellis than a Will Clark or a Rafael Palmeiro, because he is a legend at Mississippi State and beyond. And he's just such a patient guy, kind of an all-seeing guy with the great voice and that gravitas that the great ones have. The thing that you just can't explain. Bo, you're in the business. You know exactly what I'm talking about. He just has that it factor that's just hard to explain.
Well, and I thought, so much about baseball. He had the perfect temperament, John, for the ebb and flow of a game, the ebb and flow of a season. And he was in so many big moments because y'all won so much over the course of his career, between Polk and you and Lamonas. I thought he had the perfect temperament to walk you through a weekend of incredible highs and lows and postseason play.
Agreed. And, the great thing about Jim that I really loved was there were times as a coach, I'd have a conversation with Jim, and I'd say, "Hey, Jim, listen, like, you're pretty hard on our guys right now. I know we're not playing well, but you're good." But that's Jim Ellis, and that's the brilliant. He's right down the middle. When things aren't going well, he's going to tell you they're not going well. When they're going really well, he's going to tell you things are going really well. But he's going to do it in a very objective manner. He's going to give a ton of credit to the opposing team. He's going to recognize their strengths and their weaknesses.
True.
And all the while he's informing you, he's entertaining you all at the same time, which is a very difficult needle to thread.
It is. And he called, as you know this, John, he called a lot of games by himself. And
oh, my goodness, yes.
Look,
yes.
I mean, I've done some games, but I've done thousands of these shows. But when you're doing what Jim did by yourself, whether he was in Hawaii when Ron used to take the team out there, or you're in a conference game or CW, whatever it was, when you're doing games by yourself, especially baseball, because this more than anybody else, there's a lot of downtime. That is extremely difficult, and Jim was able to pull it off. Now, I want to ask you this. We're visiting with John Cohen, AD at Auburn, played at Mississippi State, baseball coach, AD at MSU, knows Jim Ellis very, very well. What was it like for you? Because I thought you did a great job going in the booth and analyzing the game. While you were AD, you would pop in for an inning or two. What was that like for you to sit by him later in life as an AD, but also as a color analyst for an inning or two when you would do that?
Well, I love doing it. And I know it's probably unusual for an athletic director to do those things, but I just felt this bond with Jim, and it was really one of the highlights of my professional career. And I'm sure the others who have sat next to him, Coach Polk probably feels this similar way. All the guys who have sat next to him, you're sitting next to a legend. You're sitting next to somebody who makes it so easy for you because he's carrying the load. You're just having a conversation with him. But not to get too graphic here, but you're right. For a long period of time, it's 3.5 hours without a bathroom break for him.
Right.
I just marveled. It's like he's juggling 20 balls at the same time, just giving you an incredible product for such a long period of time. I can't, there aren't enough expletives, there aren't enough words to describe how much respect I have for Jim Ellis and the craft that he displayed over a brilliant career.
Well, and let's think about this, John. How many guys, because we've had some extraordinary talents in the league, call games from many, y'all have, Mississippi State, Auburn, all throughout the league. But think about this. Jim Ellis called a Final Four, SEC championship game in football, and national championship series in baseball. That's pretty damn cool, John. I don't know how many other guys have done that in the Southeastern Conference.
Right. Over a long period of time. And literally just an encyclopedia, an almanac of all things Mississippi State, but also all things SEC and all things college baseball nationally. And listen, he was rarely afraid to state an opinion every once in a while, but his broadcast wasn't strictly about his opinion.
Right.
So I think listen, every one of us will move on to a different chapter in our lives, and I hope that Jim gets to enjoy every minute of it, but that's a real loss for me and really for all of college baseball who have tuned in and enjoyed Jim Ellis.
Well, and you got to, you played, you started, you were on for him to call your games both as a player and coach, that's pretty dang cool right there.
Well, I'm such a geeky nerd with these types of things that even as a player, I would record his broadcast in my dorm room.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then go back after we played it, and I'd listen to it. Because I just, I love the rhythm of it. It's like it's your own listening to a Euripides play. It's just unfolding right into your ears. And they're just, I'm being repetitive here, but there's just so few people who can pull that off, and he's a great one.
Well, and this is something else, John, because you wore several hats at Mississippi State, but nobody ever had to worry about, he was professional. You didn't ever have to worry about Jim Ellis or Jack Crystal embarrassing the university. They're class acts. You didn't have to worry about that. It didn't matter. They were in big moments, Final Fours, big SEC games, big postseason regionals, big College World Series, and you just, as an AD or whoever, or as the president of the university, whenever that was, whoever was going through at the time, you didn't have to worry about Jim Ellis. And I think that's something to remind listeners of too.
The thing I used to tease him about, and you're 100% right, you're never worried about Jim Ellis. He was the last of a generation of broadcasters, and I know this is going to sound crazy, who didn't chain smoke.
You're right.
I know. Of course,
Jack
did. Was a legend, and he was a chain smoker. Jack Buck, all those guys, and part of their voice, you have to believe that part of their voice was due to, years of smoking, and Jim had the great resonance in his voice without smoking.
That's right.
That's something that always gave me hope, because I was never going to smoke, but enjoyed doing what Jim was doing. So the minute I saw this, and I was in the middle of a meeting, I saw this on social media. It was a tearful moment. It's a moment where, man, death taxes and Jim Ellis doing Mississippi State baseball, right?
Well, for you, I mean, there's just so many memories, and it's nostalgic. And whether you were 20 years old or however old you were when you were hired as the baseball coach, and then seeing what the program did, but man, he did it right. He called some big moments and some great players. I mean, I was just going through Showalter, Raffy, Will, Brantley, all the guys you played with, Powell, Rooker, Hunter. I mean, Mangum and TA. It's just, and I missed 100 of them, but it's just amazing. Well, look, John Cohen, thanks so much for short notice and for sharing some wonderful memories and insight on the legendary broadcaster, Jim Ellis, who's hanging it up after 46 years. John, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, Bo. I appreciate you thinking of me, and golly, what an incredible, thank you for recognizing the brilliance and the career of Jim Ellis. I think that's incredibly important, Bo.
We appreciate it, John. Take care, man.
Thank you.
John Cohen on the Out of Bounds show. So he played at Mississippi State. Jim Ellis called all those games. He comes back to take over the program, rebuilt it. Jim called all his games. I don't know how many times he interviewed John. And then he hired Lamonis, who won the national championship. And he got to go in the booth. I know that was cool for John. He got to go in the booth every now and then for an inning or two and call games with Jim Ellis. So 46 years for Jim Ellis calling games all over the country and in Hawaii, because Ron was the first to take teams out to Hawaii to play baseball, which is amazing. They were able to do that back when they didn't really have a budget, but that was cool. And we'll get some other guys on to or people to celebrate Jim Ellis. But I want y'all to think about that. All the College World Series, he called a Final Four and a 98 SEC championship game in football and a national championship team in baseball. Thanks for listening to the show. Lunch today brought to you by Fleetway Market and the Market Cafe in Gluckstadt. And they've got the blue plates, and the grab and go is amazing. So if you're hungry but you're on the run, Fleetway Market and the Market Cafe in Gluckstadt, they've got the grab and go for lunch, but they've got blue plates, and you can eat there in the Market Cafe inside Fleetway Market. Thanks for listening to the show. We had a heck of a show. It was a good bounce back. I was not happy with yesterday's show, but I couldn't get my bearings coming off that New Orleans trip, which was amazing, in the Saints game. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for listening to the show. We're on Spotify. Search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds.